Welcome to Agriculture Science 465, a class taught at Montana State University by Florence Dunkel. This week, the class read Africa Unchained by George Ayittey.
Okay, let's move into Ayittey.
Basically, I took it as he's coming from, like a rural peasant point of view. Their primary occupation is agriculture, trying to keep it alive, and then, where the hippos come in,
Who are they?
I took the hippos as the new age people that are trying to come in, the new engineers of the new world. If one of their ideas doesn't work out, they're seeking handouts, they're driving the progression down, and then the cheetahs come in. That group is more of a, seeking knowledge, innovation, a little bit better than the hippos. And then you have the elites, which is those new age engineers that have a purpose or a goal, and the hippos and cheetahs are kind of branching off of those.
Okay. Are they in leadership positions?
I think that they want to be.
And in human terms, what the hippos have done is taken a lot of the finances, made their countries go into enormous debt. Now there's another group you haven't mentioned. Attingas, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Attingas.
They're the farmers.
So what's important about the Attinga?
Ayittey points out that he believes that the Tingas could help bring Africa out of poverty by being able to grow food again.
Could bring it out of poverty.
Or to help aid it out of poverty by being able to feed their own people. I think he said somewhere that he wishes Westerners wouldn't just throw money at the country, but instead make sure the money was going to something, and then the leaders end up taking it, putting it in their Swiss banks. But if the actual people could use their traditional knowledge.
I've often tried to imagine what would it be like if they would come and tell us how to run our crops, how to grow our crops.
All right, so malaria is a vector-borne disease,
and
it's the main vector is the Anopheles mosquito. The infected mosquito or vector bites the human, and it transfers or it injects sporozoites into the human. So once the sporozoites are in the body, they travel to the liver and the reticuloendothelial system, which I don't know what that is, but yeah, and then they reproduce in the liver. One sporozoite infects a cell that they're infecting multiple
Like a
cells at the same
virus?
time. Yeah, and they multiply in the cell.
what is a
And then just-
sporozoite? Is it a virus?
Sounds like it's a virus from the way.
What is the thing that causes you to get malaria? Is it a fungus? It's a protozoa.
So there's a life cycle in the liver cells, and then they rupture. And then the merozoites go and infect the blood cells, like the red blood cells, and there's a 48-hour cycle. But you don't get symptoms while it's in the liver. But then as soon as it starts infecting the blood, you start getting fevers and all the other symptoms, which are terrible.
First thing that happens is it's a quick onset because they synchronize their bursting of the red blood cells. So I can remember one night, 6:15, preparing supper. And all of a sudden I felt a little funny. I went upstairs, and the next thing I was laying flat on the bed. And the next thing I know, it's 10 o'clock. All right, that was almost 4 hours later. Sweating terrible headaches. Well, I went to the hospital, see if they could draw some blood and see the plasmodium in my red blood cells or in the, and no, they didn't see it. So it was fine. Made supper next night, same thing.
Kind of the exact same thing.
Exactly. Oh, every 6 months, maybe every 2 years, you get an episode. But what happens is you get the other one, the one that the kids are dying of. You die. Nearly everybody gets it.
Yeah.
But there must be some kind of resistance or.
But so they take in the gametocytes, gametocytes, and then they reproduce in whatever the blood cavity is, right?
Yeah, they get to this part.
And then it bites another person and injects it again. It keeps it cycling.
How long does that take to go through this?
That would be fine, that.
Well, another thing too is like the medical system. You've got Indian Health Services, and like what we were told over there is, you know, you want to get checked out early because they run on a fiscal program. So come like August, September, the end of the fiscal year, there isn't any money. We're sitting in the ER, just stacked up with all kinds of people, and they've got one doctor, and they've got one nurse, and they've got some other people that are running around having to fill out forms. But we were there with one little girl who fainted, passed out. We actually wanted to get her checked out for diabetes, and we sat there for 6 hours before we saw the doctor. Even at the good times, you know, it's not always the best of dealing. Like Taylor says, people come in and burn out quick. It's not always the case. I mean, you can get a rock star doctor that actually enjoys the community and wants to be there, but it's not going to happen in every community.
Is that something where they could do like clinics, you know, they do with blood drives and you know, you have a diabetes clinic specifically for that where people can come in and get tested for like,
Well, there's actually a project through Health and Human Development up here at MSU, but basically they focused on health issues on Crow, and they went over and tried to work with the community to get awareness up and get people get checked out and stuff. But at the same time, this one reservation in Montana, and it was a huge grant, and they ran it for a long time, but I don't think they're getting refunded.
I mean, because doesn't Red Cross do anything like that? You know what I mean?
Red Cross, when we were there for the flood, I mean, they weren't checking people out. They were, you know,
But that's
trying
not
to.
something that's like you can coordinate that and see your type of situation. You know what I mean? Like I just feel
It
like
would
those
make sense if you
organizations
could.
or like those traveling doctors type of situations.
It'd be great. Well, you know, like we've got the Engineers Without Borders that go to Kenya,
Yeah.
and nothing against that, but
There's
at the
so
same
many
time,
volunteer cars.
these
Yeah.
guys can spend their spring break over on
Yeah.
Crow because like they're building water filtration systems in Kenya. All right, over in Crow, they just had a huge flood. The water table flooded. It's, you know,
Yeah.
polluted all the wells. So same issues needed there. And so yeah, I think a big part of it is that a lot of times the reservations just get overlooked.
A diet-related issue in the Native Americans, and that the problem is that they're all eating processed food because they have such a low income and poverty levels are so high, and that's the only type of food that's available on the reservation.
I was reading somewhere too that there's a theory that indigenous peoples in the Americas have like physical adaptations that predispose them towards.
There's arguments about genetics,
Yeah.
like diabetes and alcoholism and stuff, but I've never seen anything that actually proves it.
It seemed a little strange to me because like every indigenous group in the world probably has similar
Well,
adaptations.
There's a really good book, Why Some Like It Hot, and it kind of explains Native Americans' inability. Well, I guess a lot of us are like lactose intolerant.
So is there any traditional foods
Right.
that we could allow them to eat that would help them get away from this processed food?
I don't even think going to traditional foods is
It's-
like
it's
a
just-
logical step. It's just like going to
Well, buffalo is so low in fat and high in protein, you know?
I don't know if every tribe in Montana at one point had buffalo reintroduced to them. I know that Rocky Boy did. I worked up with them a few years back, and they mismanaged the herd. That's basically what it was. I had some tribal elder tell me, like, he took the last buffalo for a feast, and he's like, you know, it was a scrawny little thing, weighed less than a cow. And then there was kind of a lack of understanding of the grazing of the buffalo. They try to pin them in like cattle. There has to be, the community has to want it, you know, and has to be able to sustain it. You know, you can't just say, all right, we're going to reintroduce buffalo and here you go, because it may not work.
Oh, are they wild grown? No, I think they were introduced.
This is wild. It smells quite robust.
It's a nut, yeah. And Andrew just asked me whether any of these were naturally grown, you know, are wild collected. This is wild collected. So this nut gets cracked and then, yeah, crunched up and then whipped into big vats by the arms of the women like this. And it turns white. It's supposed to turn pure white, like the inside of this glass. We could get little plates and you could open this up. Plate there? All right, let's open this up for us. Let's see what this is. This is really important. These are seeds, but these are seeds that produce a plant that is the, it's called da. It
Sounds like rocks.
It looks like rocks, doesn't it?